Mr. Carney, did Mr. Chang commit a crime? Did Paul Chiang commit a crime? How do you feel about standing with Paul Chiang after his outlandish comments?
I feel very confident in the future of the Liberal Party under the leadership of Mark Carney.
But what about the Chinese connection, though? What do you think about Paul Chiang getting the green light to be a candidate, even after asking for people to kidnap someone? Don't you think that's a little...
I have no comment on that.
How come? Like, how could you not have a comment on the most shocking...
Okay, I have no comment that I'm going to share with you.
Paul Chiang is a Liberal MP who put out a bounty. He literally offered $1 million Hong Kong dollars if anyone would kidnap his pro-democracy Conservative Party rival. It was shocking, and Mark Carney, the Liberal leader, stood by it for nearly a week. At midnight last night, when the political pressure was too much, Paul Chiang resigned. But here's Mark Carney today saying, yeah, I accepted the resignation, but he didn't condemn the threatened kidnapping. Here, take a look at this nothing statement from Mark Carney.
Mr. Chang made his resignation, offered his resignation last night. I accepted it. As I said yesterday, his comments were deeply troubling and regrettable. We will move on with looking for a new candidate for Markham. And I'll leave it at that.
Well, yesterday, I went to a Mark Carney event about an hour outside Toronto in Georgetown. Obviously, they didn't let me into the party event, but I was outside and I talked to some Liberals and I talked to some strangers. I even talked to a Liberal MP. Here's how that went. Are you worried about the Chinese connection with Paul Chiang? Like, it sort of shines a spotlight on Mark Carney's connections with China and the fact we still don't know who the 11 MPs were. How do you feel about standing with Paul Chiang after his outlandish comments?
I feel very confident in the future of the Liberal Party under the leadership of Mark Carney.
But what about the Chinese connection, though?
If you'd allow me to finish, Ezra, I'm very, very confident in the confidence that Canada has put in Mark Carney, and I'm very, very confident that Paul Chiang has been accountable for his comments.
How has he been accountable?
With his words and with his comments. Anyways.
That's enough for you? Just like saying sorry and he can still stay? Like, he called for a man to be kidnapped.
Look, it wasn't something that I said, Ezra, and I think the Prime Minister said it best. It's a moment that we can all learn from. Thanks for your question.
But what's the lesson that we've learned?
Thanks, Ezra.
Ezra Levant here. I'm in Georgetown in the Halton Hills area. Where is that? About an hour away from our office in Toronto. We came here on very short notice. I didn't wear an appropriate winter gear, and it's pretty chilly out. But we're here because we were told that Mark Carney, the installed, selected Prime Minister, was having an event at the St. George pub. And indeed it was. We came here and there was a lineup outside. I asked some people questions. Why are you here? Obviously, they're Liberal Party stalwarts on the list who would have been given last-minute notice just like we received. Many of them were severely normal people, very friendly. I asked some of them what they liked about Mark Carney. The answers were pretty vague. One or two people said it was his command of economics. That's a fair answer. Others said his values, but when I pressed them, they couldn't really list any. Some people said voting Liberal was a family tradition. Here's some of those friendlier responses to my questions in the lineup outside in the cold. Can I ask what you like about Mark Carney?
Well, Mark Carney seems to be a pretty nice guy, having a cool head and something that can benefit Canada from his experience of whatever the education he has, whatever the experience he has, working with top banks in the world, top economists,
But are you worried about the fact that he's not really connected to Canada? I mean, he only came back a few weeks ago. He's been in Europe for 10 years. Do you think he really understands the plight of ordinary Canadians?
Yeah, but he was always connected with the Liberal government. He was always there. So it's not like that he is just a fresh guy coming into the politics here. So I think so that he will be good for Canada.
Are you a Liberal already, or are you just checking out the merchandise?
I'm a Liberal.
And are you excited about Mark Carney?
Yeah.
What do you like about him?
He's a banker. He's sensible.
You like bankers. That's a first. I never heard that.
I like his policies, what he's outlined so far.
And what's the number one issue? So you're liberals because that's your tribe and that's your tradition, but is there something in particular you like about him?
Yeah, economics. I've looked for somebody that was competent all along. I like Trudeau because I thought he would listen to experts. I like Mark because he is an expert.
And how about yourself? And again, it was only a compliment, but you did look young enough that maybe you've never voted. Is there a particular issue, or is it just sort of the family way?
I think there are a lot of issues. I think this will probably be the most important election for my
Why is that?
generation.
Well, I mean, I agree, but maybe we have different reasons. Why do you think it's important?
I think that with the way the States is going, there's a lack of compassion for other people. And I don't think that at this time the leader of the Conservatives feels that compassion. I don't think he relates to many Canadians, and so I don't think he feels that way. And that's important to me. So
Last question, and you've been very generous with your time. Who do you prefer? Justin Trudeau or Mark Carney?
Carney.
Well, I like Mark, I think, for his expertise. I have no problem with Trudeau, but
Are you a liberal by nature?
I have been since the Trudeau years. I was brought up as a conservative.
Oh, really? So when did you switch?
Harper.
Oh, so you switched away from the Conservatives under Harper?
Yeah.
So you were a Justin Trudeau gal?
Justin Trudeau.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks like you're almost in, so I don't want to take up too much of your time, but if there was one reason other than sort of tradition and habit, one reason you like Mark Carney, what would it be?
It's to stand up to Trump. That's my biggest issue, standing up to Trump.
Now, Trump tweeted something unusual the other day. He tweeted that he sort of prefers Carney being the PM, and I didn't understand that.
I didn't believe
So
that.
you think that was like
I
disinformation?
had an argument with my neighbor who thinks that that's true, and I don't. I think that's just Trump. Trump just throwing it out there to mess up things, but no.
So a little bit of chaos.
Yeah, I don't think that he really wants to deal with Carney, and I think he knows that he's got Polyev. He's under his thumb. Yeah. I think Polyev would I think he'd sell our country off.
In what way? What's your fear?
Thinking he can deal with Trump and make trades on things. I think he'd sell off our resources, our water, things like that.
My boy here is excited to meet the Prime Minister.
Yes, I'm really excited.
And why are you excited to meet him?
Because I've never had an opportunity like this before, and I'm just really excited to meet him.
And what will you say to him if you meet him?
Just welcome to Georgetown. That's
Are you from around here?
Yeah. I would say so.
And what are you hoping that he does as a Prime Minister?
Everything that we were asking for.
Are you a student in school? What grade are you in?
I'm in grade 6.
Oh yeah. Well, good for you for coming to a political event. Is that your dad or your grandpa? Okay. Well, good luck.
I am here to support him. The Liberals are doing very good since long time. They are good for the Canadians. They are good for the people of the Canada. They take care for them. Even internationally, they take care for everybody.
So tell me, are you a liberal by tradition, or are you just here to check out the Liberals for the first time? Are you part of the party?
No, by tradition.
What do you like most about Mark Carney?
I like his values.
Give me one value that you like. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just trying to learn what you like about him. I don't want to press you if I'm making you nervous.
He's a good speaker.
You a good speaker? Okay. Well, I had some prickly questions too. And before I get into it, let me tell you the background. There's a Liberal member of Parliament from Markham, which is part of the Greater Toronto area. He was actually, he's a Chinese Canadian, but he was born in Pakistan. So I guess that makes him a Pakistani Chinese Canadian. I don't know, but it won't surprise you to learn that such a man was given a prominent role in the DEI policing efforts in the Greater Toronto area. He speaks many languages, and of course he's friendly with Pakistani people and Chinese people and hopefully Canadian people. And apparently he served for about a quarter century as a cop, and then he ran to be a Liberal PM, MP. So far, so normal. But a couple of days ago, he said the most astonishing thing in Chinese to a Chinese language news conference in the GTA. And he said that he called upon people to kidnap a conservative Chinese Canadian candidate who's active in the Hong Kong freedom movement, to kidnap this conservative, take him to the Chinese consulate where there is a 1 million Hong Kong dollar bounty for him. Just absolutely shocking. And that's not a fiction or a fantasy. There really is a 1 million Hong Kong dollar bounty for that man. And China has been credibly accused of kidnapping other Canadians who have a track record of standing up against communist China, and in some sort of a rendition, taking them back to China. And then there's, of course, the kidnapping of 2 ethnic Canadian people overseas, the 2 Michaels, Michael Spavor and the other Michael, who were kidnapped and held for years in China. So for a Liberal MP to say, go out there and kidnap my opponent and bring him to the Chinese consulate for $1 million, not a joke, not a spoof, not a riff, a message that does 2 things. First of all, it might actually cause the man to be kidnapped. Second of all, it terrorizes and terrifies any Chinese Canadians in Canada who resist and oppose the Chinese Communist Party. And third of all, it signals that Mark Carney and the Liberal Party of Canada are in league with the Communist Party of China, which we already know because there are 11 MPs in Parliament who were compromised by Chinese influence in the last election, according to CSIS. And although Mark Carney has refused to disclose his finances, we know from public records that he recently negotiated a $250 million loan from the Chinese government, that he recently met with Xi Jinping. Mark Carney has said that China is the future. China is ambitious. China is responsible.
One of the many strengths of China is their perspective, their medium long-term perspective. This is an ambitious G20. It's an ambitious Chinese leadership.
What we don't know is what holdings Mark Carney still has that are make him exposed to Chinese influence or power, other than, I suppose, a $250 million loan. Now, incredibly, after ignoring the issue for days, the media finally reported on it, the mainstream media, that is. And today, Mark Carney had a press availability, but only for regime media. But to their credit, they asked about this atrocious statement by Mr. Chang. And let me just remind you, if you need reminding, kidnapping is a crime in Canada, one of the most serious crimes. And committing a crime in concert with a foreign power is another criminal offense as well. I forget the exact name of it. It was actually a fairly recent law passed in the last year or 2. So what Mr. Chang did was actually a crime. Here, listen to Mark Carney talk about it as if it was some verbal gaffe, as if it was stumbling over a word or getting something a little bit wrong, a little bit of a whoopsie. Take a listen.
Look, the comments were deeply offensive. Terrible. This is a terrible lapse of judgment by Mr. Chang. He has apologized for those comments. He has apologized directly now to the person that he mentioned. Apologized directly to him yesterday. I've spoken to Mr. Chang as well over the course of the weekend to understand his position. He is a veteran policeman. Mr. Chang is a veteran policeman with more than a quarter century of service to his community. 28 years of defending rights in this community. And he will continue with his candidacy going forward, having made those apologies very clearly to the individual, to the community, and moving forward to serve.
Yeah, no, it's not a teachable moment because you're the student who's supposed to learn the lesson, or maybe you're the teacher in this metaphor, I don't know. But when someone calls for a crime to be committed, it's not a teachable moment, it's an arrestable moment. Let me ask you a question. If it had been not Paul Chiang, Liberal MP and candidate, if it had been a trucker in the convoy in 2022 who had looked in the camera and said, I want you to kidnap a mayor of Ottawa, or I want you to kidnap an RCMP officer and bring him to me. And if they said it seriously to the camera like that, and if they were talking about it in a way that suggested it was possible, and remember, Mr. Chang is a former police officer. That's what's so astonishing here. He knew what he was saying was illegal, and he said it with the brazen confidence of a man who I suspect has said it many more times than that. For him just to casually say, oh, can you kidnap this guy? To say it in Chinese with utter confidence, do you really think that's the first time that Paul Chiang has called for the enemies of communist China to be violently treated in this country? I simply don't think so. It makes me wonder what he did in his 25 years as a cop. Makes me wonder how many times and how recently he's been on the phone or visited in person the Chinese consulate. To know that this particular conservative candidate in Toronto that he called to be kidnapped, to know that there was a bounty against him is such an obscure piece of knowledge. Was he briefed on that by the Chinese consulate? Was he working with them? But instead, Mark Carney just says, oh, I was disappointed in him and he apologized and we're moving on from this teachable moment. Well, first of all, Mr. Tay, who was the victim of this proposed kidnapping, has not accepted the apology. And since when do you get to call for a high capital crime and then just say, whoops, I'm sorry. He didn't even say he misspoke. The trouble with what Paul Chiang did was that it revealed who he is. It's not actually the words that are the worst part of it. The words are likely a crime. But the words reveal who he has been and who he is. He's someone who does China's bidding in Canada, not Canada's bidding. He's someone who puts obedience to the Chinese Communist Party ahead of his loyalties to Canada. Mr. Tay, who was the target, it's not about ethnicity. Both men are ethnic Chinese. One of them is a Canadian. One of them is an instrument for a foreign country. Anyways, I asked a few questions about Mr. Chang. Not surprisingly, the crowd was hostile and didn't have much to say. Here's a taste of that. Do you agree with Mark Carney's decision to allow Paul Chiang to stay as a candidate? What do you guys think? Anyone have an opinion on Paul Chiang? It's a very serious matter. What do you guys think of Paul Chiang staying as a candidate for the Liberals, even though he called for a Conservative to be kidnapped? Do you think that's befitting the Liberal Party that you know and love? Are you worried that maybe he's one of the 11 MPs that were compromised by China? Is it something to laugh about?
You're something to laugh about.
Well, Mark Carney wasn't laughing today. He said it was deplorable. Do you agree? Like, why would you laugh about something like that? He called for a rival to be kidnapped and handed over to China. Do you think he was joking? You don't care, do you? All right, you just keep laughing about it. What do you think about Paul Chiang getting the green light to be a candidate, even after asking for people to kidnap someone? Don't you think that's a little...
I have no comment on that.
How come? Like, how could you not have a comment on the most shocking...
Okay, I have no comment that I'm going to share with you.
Okay, and why is that? Who will you share it with?
Maybe my friends, maybe my family, not with Rebel News.
But you're coming here to show your support for the party that has endorsed Paul Chiang. Don't you think that's weird?
No, I don't think it's weird. A lot of other people are here too. I find it strange that you guys are here, but whatever.
Well,
anyway, have a nice day.
All right, I'm here to hear all points of view. That's not weird. It's weird to support someone who believes in kidnapping. Don't you think?
Is Mr. Polyev going to get a security clearance, or where we stand on that?
That's a great question. Is that sort of a set-off here? If Pierre Polyev gets his security clearance, will you condemn this Chinese agent? Would you do a deal like that?
Because if I said that, he would agree, right?
I don't know. I don't know why you raised it, so maybe it's like a set-off.
Because you're asking me silly questions, so I thought I'd ask you one.
You really think it's a silly question that you have someone who's calling for the kid?
Could you move on? There's a lot of other people in line.
Sure. I'm trying to understand the liberal thinking here. And so far it's very hard. All right. Anybody have some thoughts on Paul Chiang, what do you think about Paul Chiang and that whole
I don't
situation?
know the situation at all. I'm not familiar with it at all.
Well, your leader had, I don't know if you're a liberal, but Mark Carney had a press conference today and he said it was deplorable, but he's keeping Chang as the candidate, even though he said he wanted people to kidnap his conservative opponent. What do you think of that?
I don't know. I'm not up on what's going on that way. All I know is Mark Carney is the man for the hour. I voted conservative all of my life, and I'm voting liberal for the first
What
time.
made you flip?
Because he's the man of the hour. He knows how to handle money. And also, I'm not very high on Pierre Poilievre. To me, he's a barking dog. That's it.
And what's the number one issue for you? You said managing money, but would you say Donald Trump or the economy, or what's the number one thing for you?
Both the economy and Donald Trump.
But you did vote for conservatives in the past.
All my life.
Really? So when did you switch?
When Carney ran.
Wow, you like the guy.
He's the best man for the job, hands down.
Well, can I ask you an international question? Because there's a candidate in Markham named Paul Chiang for the Liberals who asked for people to kidnap his conservative opponent and hand him over to the Chinese consulate. And I found that shocking. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, sometimes some incidents are happening. They should be dealt properly.
And do you think that guy should still continue on as a candidate for the Liberals?
It is up to him. He has to decide it by himself.
It feels like, that would be serving China's interests to kidnap someone. That's not a really Canadian move, is it?
They should dealt according to the law and the information what I have been.
Do you feel comfortable? What do you think about the Paul Chiang situation? Have you been following that at all?
No, I'm here with my grandfather and.
Oh, good for you! It's family outing.
Yes. So I'm still in the learning phase.
Yeah.
So I'm continuing with the articles and the news.
Yeah.
So I better not question.
Fair enough. Well, thanks for talking with me. Anyways, that's the right attitude to take. How about you, boss? Do you have any thoughts on Paul Chiang?
I don't have any. Thanks, Ezra.
Okay.
Have a great day.
Well, thanks very much. You too. Do you guys have any opinions on Paul Chiang running as a candidate?
Well,
Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know that statement that he gave about it was little unfortunate. Maybe he was not in his senses at that time.
Do you think it was that minor an incident, just like a hiccup or a verbal typo?
Exactly, you would say a verbal typo, nice word, a verbal typo. But that was pretty much it, I think so. Not seriously to be taken it like that.
Now, he didn't say it was just a joke. He didn't deny it. I'm worried it represents something deeper. I'm worried he was one of the 11 MPs who were in league with communist China. Are you not worried about that?
No, I'm not really. I think so. It was a light moment that probably he.
Come on, kidnapping? How's that light? He wasn't joking. He wasn't laughing when he said it.
I think so. He was in a it was in a light mood. That's I should take it like that.
Well, I mean, but no one else is taking it like that. The guy who he wanted to be kidnapped, he's not laughing. He didn't accept the apology.
I can understand that it's a situation like the elections are close by and people are trying to take advantage of anything that comes out of the mouth. But still, I would take it lighthearted now.
Do you guys have any thoughts about the Paul Chiang matter? That's the candidate.
Not Rebel News, man. I'm
Not
sorry.
Rebel News. Why is that? What don't you like about Rebel News? I can take it.
Not a fan.
Why? Tell me two things we could improve.
I'm good. You can keep going down the line. I'm good.
Come on, you got to help. You can't say that and then decline my invitation to fix us.
I totally can, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously they're not going to talk about that. They either claim they didn't hear about it or don't have an opinion. Look, what can you say? I mean, what can you say when your party is now known as the Chinese collusion party? Not that these liberals care. Anyways, Mark Carney showed up and he walked by. I thought I would holler out a question. I knew that he either wouldn't hear me or if he heard me, he wouldn't be distracted by it. I wanted to know, did Paul Chiang commit a crime by calling for the kidnapping of a Canadian citizen to suit the interests of a foreign nation? Is that a crime? I hollered it a couple times. Here's me projecting. Did Paul Chiang commit a crime? Mr. Carney, did Mr. Chang commit a crime? Did Paul Chiang commit a crime? Mr. Carney, did Paul Chiang commit a crime? I'm just vocalizing. I'm projecting. No surprise, I had no answer, but at least I put the question to the air and the wall of police who were standing in front of me. Let me give you some final thoughts from the location of the St. George pub. It's a good turnout for an hour's notice. It's not a bad turnout. Mark Carney is learning a little bit to at least fake the common touch. There was a group of people outside here in the cold, and he walked through them and he shook their hands and he said, "You're the real VIPs." And he spent about 5 minutes going through the crowd of the people who couldn't make it in. That's a good move for a politician to do. He's still stiff as a board. It's not natural for him to talk to the unwashed masses, but he did it. He's learning. I think Mark Carney is a formidable candidate, not particularly for anything he's done, but because of the way the ground has changed. Donald Trump has scrambled this election. 3 months ago, it was going to be a shoo-in for Pierre Poilievre. Now it's all tied up. In fact, many of the polls show that the Liberals have an advantage. There's still a month left to turn this around. But for Conservatives, they should know they're in a tough battle, not so much against Mark Carney, but against a new landscape that's tilted against the Conservatives. At least that's how it felt today.